On this episode of Delta Beyond Oil, we'll take a look at the construction of a Silicon Valley in Delta State, and a new brand of marshals hit the streets to save the children and their future. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Onyi Sunday, and this is Delta Beyond Oil. Science, technology, and innovation. Key factors contributing to economic growth in both advanced and developing economies. With the increase of knowledge-based economies, experts cite a correlation between the economic competitiveness of a country and the productivity of its ICT sector. This may have influenced the decision to choose the development of ICT as a tool to drive the Delta Beyond Oil initiative, with the focus on human capacity development.
This present generation of young people who are the future of this state, I mean, ICT to them is just going to be the way the biro was to me in my generation. So we felt this was a very, very critical sector, and a sector that we needed to accord that kind of importance, and that is exactly what we are doing in Delta State.
If you look at the trend all over the world, ICT is perhaps the most, the sector that will yield the fastest result, and also it has the ability to touch all the other sectors of the economy, being creating as an enabler to help diversify the economy. Other than agriculture, I believe that ICT, it's a sector that has not been developed in this country. And in building Delta Beyond Oil, our attempt here is to see how we can develop a strong ICT industry in Delta State that will actually goes beyond Delta State for the role of the South and Nigeria as a whole.
An ICT park for developing software and training computer engineers is currently under construction in Delta State. Occupying 50 hectares of land, this 26 billion naira project is being built in 3 phases. The state government is undertaking the first phase, which includes the provision of basic infrastructure such as land, electricity, security, and fiber optic connectivity. It then plans to invite the private sector to build the second and third phases by creating incentives.
Besides that, the government is building the incubation center. The incubation center will be built by the government. And that's the incubation center is the engine room, is the powerhouse, is the knowledge base of the park. Because that's where we're going to train the software engineers that will provide both the manpower to run lots of the companies that will work in. Because one of the key area that people look at when they're about to locate an industry is manpower. Where will they get the manpower from? So if an IBM is coming in here, they know they're going to find software engineers here who already know the subject matter, understand the business.
Clear.
Yes.
It down. The government provided land. Check. What again? The government is building.
We'll provide the infrastructure in the land. The infrastructure they're going to do the roads.
Okay, the roads.
There's electricity. There's water. You're going to do all that. There's security. The most important aspect of all infrastructure is security.
Already, the private sector is taking full advantage of this initiative. The park's first tenants are already on site with the construction of a training institute known as the Digital Bridge Institute. Hostels are also being built to accommodate students attending advanced courses in ICT. The government hopes this will serve as a center for the growth of the software industry, as well as act as a catalyst for a technological revolution in the state. It wants to fill the center with companies that focus on software development. It is projected that in its first 3 years, the park will create 15,000 entrepreneurs in the ICT sector and another 10,000 jobs.
We've gone to India and studied the Asian Tigers model, how India was able to leverage ICT in building its economy, to the extent that today India controls about 60% of the software outsourcing industry. And the software outsourcing industry, according to Gartner, the research company, by this year is going to worth about $228 billion. India controls 60% of that. Now, if Delta State can just take a bite into that $228 billion and just get just 1% of that, look at what the ripple effect will be. So in doing that, in building that the ICT park, the idea is to see how we can co-locate. For any company that wants to do any IT business in this country, our idea is to see how we can attract them to come to the ICT park in Asaba and build the business there, be it IT research company, be it computer assembly company, be it software engineering company, see how we can do that.
An ICT park with lofty ambitions is one thing, but will people make the most of it?
I can do anything with the computer, yes. Work on application programs, software programs.
Although it's just the basics of computer, the elementary aspect of computer, which is I can use the Microsoft Word, the CorelDRAW, the PowerPoint, like to make some designs. That's what the aspect I know about computer.
Yes, I can use PageMaker, CorelDRAW, as in to design hand-built, many things like that. In PageMaker, you use it to make newspaper, ID cards, things like that.
Although these Asaba residents sound knowledgeable about computer sciences, the majority may not. Maureen Eyikimi is an instructor at the Nigerian Institute of Information Technology in Delta State. She says only 30% of the population in the state capital, Asaba, are computer literate.
Most people, it's not like they don't know what computer is about or they don't know the importance. Their issue is they feel it's too expensive. They always think about the money. And most times, you know, it's like a school. You learn first before you start seeing the results. Okay, so for them, it's like a waste of time. That's how they think, that's how they see it.
The NIIT, like many others in the state, offer training in ICT and software development. Its students, however, are mostly undergraduates or workers who require training to function in modern-day offices. Although computer technology was introduced to the state's civil service 13 years ago with the launch of the project E-Delta, a large number of businesses with the potential to drive the state's economy are yet to catch up.
Some people feel it's better just do your primary education because secondary you have to pay higher and the rest. That's how they see it, especially when they are not in constant interaction with the computer. Like you're doing a job, for instance, you work in a market, you have a shop, you are not using any computer. So you ask me, what's the point? Why learn it when I'm not using it? So I'm going to spend money and I won't see the gain.
The Silicon Valley may be the long-awaited vehicle needed to stir an interest in ICT. The director at ICT, however, believes the technological revolution should begin with the younger generation. Currently, computer science is a compulsory subject in primary and secondary schools across Delta State.
When I came on board in this, in this administration, one of the very first things the governor did was to first begin to build ICT labs in the schools, secondary schools across the state, so that we can begin to inculcate the idea technology in the schools, computer penetration, technology penetration, so that our kids will be able to survive and function in the 21st century economy. So we're talking of building the 21st century economy, which is what Delta Beyond Oil is all about. But we need people that have the manpower and the skill set to drive that economy.
Go to those schools, you will see the ICT component of what we're trying to do in our schools. And that begins to tell you the kind of revolution we want to bring in, because we have realized that that is the future.
However, the success of this technological revolution is threatened by the lack of infrastructure. Some rural secondary schools rely on solar power owing to unreliable power supply and the high cost of diesel required to run the generators. Irrespective of the challenges, some of the students say they are happy to have moved from the theory classes to practical.
So it'll be cool, and it have made us to understand computer more better, because before we were using theory, but now we are now using theory and practical, so it's more easier for us to understand.
How can you use the computer?
I can type, I can open Microsoft Excel, I can open PowerPoint and all that things.
If I were to work in the bank, I can make use of my computer through my Excel. I can do some calculation through my computer. So I can find it so easy than using manual hands, cracking my brains to make some calculations.
When it came, was it easy for them to adapt, or was that initial fear?
It was not easy in a way, but there was that fear. You know, so many of them, they've not really touched computer. They're only hearing of computer and all those things. So it was difficult for them. So we just need to put them through and make sure you take away that fear, so that they will be able to work with it and learn it.
Presently, the students have access to a computer once a week. While this may not be enough to drive the digital campaign, the school principal says there is a dire need of qualified computer science teachers.
The teachers are not enough, the ones we have, to run all the classes. We have only 2 teachers for computer right now.
Although the director of ICT says the state government is addressing the situation, he adds that a lot still needs to be done at the federal government level if Delta State and the country as a whole is to run a successful digital campaign.
A good example of what I expect that policy to go. One, we should have a broadband policy. When I say broadband policy, we should make it very clear that every Nigerian citizen should have access to broadband, not less than 5 megabits connectivity per second. Now, when you do that, it's not some ambiguous targets that you cannot, that can be quantified or measured. These are, when you say, I think in Botswana has something like that, Iceland has something like that, and right now Rwanda also has something like that, where the country is being interconnected by fiber optic cables to provide both voice and data. So when you have this, the ripple effect of that alone in the education sector, in all sectors, when every home has broadband connectivity, because there's a government policy that says that government will subsidize this area, or government will come in and help and support the private sectors that will build the infrastructure. But right now we don't have anything. We're groping in the dark. Different companies come in. This is perhaps the only country in the world where you go, there's no landline. And you can't run a lot of stuff we do here, we can't run it on GSM. So the broadband, it's one area that must be addressed by the ICT, that must be addressed by a well-articulated ICT policy. Then the other one also have to be the availability, and the availability of that same broadband in all our schools, and the inclusion of IT in our curriculum. That it's a must, that it must be included in all the curriculums in the country. Then you move away from that. You also come in and say that, then you look at the sector and you say, where do we get our equipments from? Where do we get all our software from? Is there any attempt to grow local content?
The challenges hindering the development of ICT is not peculiar to Delta State or Nigeria as a whole. According to research done by the World Economic Forum, African leaders in 2004 committed to raise funding for science and technology to 1% of their GDP. While some countries have hit and surpassed this target, most have not come close. According to the report, this is also reflected in the decline in quality of science and engineering education at all levels of education.